Welcome to Quality of Life Matters, the official podcast of the International Society for Quality of Life Studies. This is your front row seat to the global well-being conversation. Join hosts Lina Martínez and Roger Fernandez-Urbano as they explore cutting-edge research and inspiring ideas that are shaping happiness, well-being, and quality of life.
Hello, my name is Roger Fernandez-Urbano, and we welcome you to this new episode of the ISQOLS podcast. Today, we have the honor to have Lina. Nice to have you here, Lina, and thank you for accepting again our invitation to participate in the podcast.
Roger, thank you very much. Thank you for all the people who are listening and watching this episode. I'm very happy to be here talking with you about my book and about happiness, which is the area in which we are pretty much doing research.
Thank you. One of the first questions that I wanted to ask you is that when people hear the word happiness, what do they usually understand and what they usually misunderstand? Maybe you can give us a hint on that.
I think that people usually relate with happiness with the emotional state of happiness. Like at this moment, I feel happy because I'm doing something that is good to me, something that makes me feel good. So most of the people just stay in that dimension, like the emotional dimension of happiness, and forget how big and how broad is the concept of happiness. Happiness is also related to a good life, to the goals, to aspirations, to satisfactions we have in different life domains, to general pursuit that we have, that we all have to have a good life, also for a sense of purpose. So I think it's very narrow, the idea that people have on happiness and how to achieve it. It is like, I want to feel happy at this moment, so what do I need to do at this moment to feel happy? And that's pretty much the narrative you will find in social network.
Totally. They also forget, as you were saying, no, the more the eudaimonic concept of meaning and purpose, no, or the more cognitive one about an evaluation, no, of your life.
And I will go with one of the things that people misunderstood the most. It is the relationship between money and happiness.
Mm-hmm.
In Cali, we have a survey, and that survey has been part of the material that I have used to produce my book. It has been the cornerstone of my research. Calibrando, yeah, that's the name of the survey.
Love the name.
It is the cornerstone of my research of happiness in Latin America. And when you ask the people, what do you think you are missing to have a completely satisfied life? People always get to money or things that you can buy with money, houses, a car, vacations, all the commodities that can be bought. And we know that the relationship between money and happiness is very weak. You get to the association point, and that association point is in which more money won't buy you more happiness quite very quickly. I mean, depending on the country, depending on the conditions you live, you will reach that point quite easily. But I think that that's one of the major misconceptions of happiness. It is like happiness happens at this moment in this particular activity, and if it's related with something I can buy.
Do you think that then they assume, especially in the Latin American context, no, in Cali, in Colombia, that the social relationships, they almost took it for granted, where maybe, I don't know, in other places they value much more because they found it more difficult to sustain it and to make these connections? Maybe it's one of the particularities of the Latin American context. I don't know if you can give us a hint on that.
I can give you a hint on that. Latin America is a very interesting place to study happiness. When you see the World Happiness Report ranking and you see what are the happiest places in the world, the happiest countries, you always get Scandinavian countries, which are very rich, very organized, have a welfare state in which people can rely for health, for education, etc., etc. When you get into Latin America as a group of countries, we are incredibly happy, and we don't have half of the trust of institutions, of the democracy, of the freedom that you might find in Scandinavian countries. But what do we have in abundance, and it doesn't cost money, is the density and the strength of the relationships we have. And there are many indicators for that. We have a larger net of people in which we can trust, in which we can go in difficult times to help for logistics, for money, for care, etc., etc. And part of the explanation of that is a concept called familism.
Yeah.
Because we have weak states. And we don't have the welfare state supporting every activity we have. We need to rely on family. So care is one of them. If you were a mother in any Scandinavian country, you might have a public system in which you can have your children during the day while you are working. And it works pretty well, it is well funded, it's trusting, etc., etc. But if you are in Latin America, it's your grandma, your mom, your uncle, your cousin, the one that is going to help you to raise your children. And pretty much we are compensating through family networks, to relationship networks, all of the things that is not working in the welfare state. I mean, we don't have those institutions for many reasons, economic and social reasons. Our states are not so well funded in which it can provide all the services that it should. So who provides them? The family.
The family.
So the care, financial inclusion, for instance. In Latin America, it's very often that when you need money and you are excluded from the financial services, you will have your family to help you with that. So it is embedded in the way we have grown, we have understand society. And it's fantastic because it creates a very dense network of people. And we still nourish much of those relationships.
So this is very interesting because I'm thinking, okay, in one hand, this is fantastic, but on the other hand, as we want to maybe help the policymakers to improve the life conditions and the quality of life in general, if in the future we can get a stronger welfare state or a safety net that really helps these people to don't be so dependent on the family, but it's the state that also tries to provide this hand. Do you think that then this is going to change, and this change, do you think it will be positive, or maybe I don't know? I'm just thinking, because maybe at some point we have a stronger state and a stronger welfare state, so people is less familist, and then at the end this is going step by step to disintegrate all these bonds that once were the key of happiness of Latin America. What do you think that would happen?
I think that the states has so many things to solve that the last thing they will solve will be the things that are solved through family networks. I mean, we need to solve pensions, security, poverty reduction, many of the things that it's not solved by itself, by family, okay? So, and they are pretty much in a top priority of the government. What we do, however, is trying to protect all those policies that keeps the density of the relationships. For instance, maternity leave. That's one of the things that can keep those solidity of the relationships. Or we can keep care and support. In our society, grandfathers stay with us longer. Children stay in their families longer. I mean, it's quite usual that you leave home when you finish college. In other countries, once you are done with high school, you're gone. So it's pretty much like protecting that time in the family through a life work balance, for instance, or the time you have with your newborn, or trying to be more progressive, as many European countries in which the maternity or paternity leave could be exchange with mothers and fathers equally. So it is more like the protection of those kind of systems that we have in place.
And also, I understand that when you say family, you mean not only the core family, but the extended family. So the uncles, the cousins, everyone, no, in the community, no, more this vision that just maybe in more individualistic countries that when they refer to family, it's the closest for family, you know. I think that in Latin America you have this conception that the family, they're always all together, which also in the southern European states, the Mediterranean states, also we have this Latin tradition, no, also that is more collectivistic, maybe we will say, no.
Okay, one of the things you will find in social media and social network, it is kind of, I don't know if it's a joke or it's a form to use humor to portray the way we work as a society, and it's the long, the big list of people, the cousins, aunts, neighbors. You have like, you are going to throw a party and you have the whole neighborhood on your door.
But this is nice, no? I think that when you go out in the neighborhood and everyone stops you, and this, for instance, me, no, I am from Barcelona, and I like that sometimes when I go to buy the newspaper or the bread, you know, I remember there is a lot of people sometimes, you know, that stops me in the street, and we can have these informal conversations, which makes me feel that I am part of a bigger community, you know? Maybe not family, the core family, but that I am part of this, no? Which this study of Harvard that follow the same individuals through the years, from the poorest neighborhoods of Boston to the Harvard graduates. At the end, they found out that is the most important factor, no, to promote well-being. And I think that here it's where we can learn a lot from Latin America.
I mean, we reach high levels of happiness with very few money, with very little money as compared with developed countries. And part of that is the richness of our relationships, and we pretty much build systems to keep those relationships in place. In many places and cultures, we still have the Sunday lunch, the cumpleaños, the
these
happy
rituals,
birthdays,
no?
Those rituals that are pretty much a collective. And when you see the data, the world data about loneliness, for instance, Latin America ranks very low on that. And it's because the density of relationships, and you will have, it's very difficult to establish causality, but you can see the link between, for instance, a higher prevalence of loneliness and mental health or emotional problems. So for us, family, it's not only family and friends. And when I say family, is the whole thing of relationships we have, that constellation, because we also, it's very often in Latin America that we think friends as a family, the chosen family. So everyone who is around us is pretty much family in some way, in some degree.
Yes, which brings me to 2 points that I want to reflect, but maybe you want to add something more?
No, the thing that I was going to say, that for us, the density of that network, it is a cushion for mental health problems, for loneliness, for another things that we are seeing in other countries, particularly in developed countries. We don't see that much in Latin America yet. And I hope that the way that we structure our society is still keeping us away from those trends.
Which brings me precisely to 2 points. The first one is, I remember the research of Mariano Rojas, our colleague Mariano Rojas, which I think that we also reflect on that in other parts of our podcast, on one of his main findings, that is that in Latin American countries, people, when they have social relationships, they don't do it in an instrumental point of view, like that, which is something that normally we find more in more individualistic countries, like in the US, no? That you go to a networking event and people maybe have a tendency to instrumentalize relationships. People are instruments to get to higher maybe levels of job opportunities or whatever. Whereas in Latin American countries, when people relate to each other, they don't do it because they per se want something from you. They just relate for the sake of relating. It's the benefit. It's beneficial already, no? To try to to just establish a nice and warm communication, which I think that maybe it's one of the things that that differentiates, the way that people relate to each other in Latin American countries with more individualistic ones. And this is, well, maybe you can reflect on that and relate to that. What is the impact that social media do you think that is going to have to all this with globalizations that nowadays we see that especially the young people is getting more addicted, and every time it's a growing tendency to compare each other in social media, and maybe if you can reflect in these 2 points.
Okay, yeah, let's start with the instrumentalization of relationships. When we are in the realm of measuring social capital and social network, the variable, the question that we use more often is if you have donated something, if you have participated in any social, political activities, if you have been volunteer in somehow, okay? Those are the typical questions that we have. And the higher the donation, the higher the times you do volunteering, or the higher the times you participate in any collective action, your social capital is higher. If you go to Latin America and you ask those questions, they will be kind of weird. Yes. Okay, and actually we are kind of low in volunteering, or we are kind of low in social and political participations. That's not the way we build relationships. And this is one of the critiques in the work of Mariano Rojas that you mentioned him earlier. It is like this is a very instrumental way to think on relationships.
Totally.
Like if I'm measuring social capital because you are donating something, or because you are doing something in some kind of volunteering, we don't measure social relationships in that way. We measure social relationships in the way we spend time with others, in the time that our family is configured, the time in which we enjoy those encounters.
These rituals, no?
Yes.
With the family that creates, yes.
And so it is completely different and weird, those kind of questions. And this goes, and this is a reflection very much for people who is doing research on subjective well-being and happiness. The standard metrics that we have for developed countries do not capture the cultural dynamics in other places. And based on those measures, you won't be able to grasp all the richness and the factors associated with what country or what culture relates or not relates in terms of happiness.
Totally.
So for us, the richness of the relationships is measured. It goes in a completely different direction. And for us, it's more measured in the terms of knowing your neighbor, or staying for a long period of time with your family and having friends. And for instance, if you ask me, do I do any kind of volunteer? Probably not, but I help a lot of my friends in different ways, because that's the way we contribute to our network. Now, going to your other questions about social network. This year, the World Happiness Report is going to have one of the best evidence that we have available. You are part of this group of researchers. Congratulations, by the way, on that. And the take is, everything is poison and nothing is poison. It depends on the doses. And you won't be able to claim any kind of causality between using social networks and your sense of happiness, because it mediates how poor you are, the stronger the relationships you might have, how many times have your parents to share with you, the society in which you are raised. So many factors are around that. We know that young people probably will have a higher prevalence of having emotional issues related with the use of social network, because we see that. I mean, being in social network is an indirect comparison all the time.
All the time.
If you get into Instagram, all the time you are comparing yourself, and you are comparing yourself way above your standards because you are not following anyone in social network in which you perceive to be lower than your standard. That's not the point. I mean, you won't have a bunch of people you are following and just to feel yourself better because they are worse than you. I mean, you are following people who is way better than yourself and way better in terms of physical characteristics, in money, in traveling, in access of many things. And social network is signaling social network, whatever you post on social network.
Which is it makes an individualization of all these processes that we were saying. You know, we are not longer trying to enjoy the family with the time with the friends and the family, but trying to put content once we are there to show off that, look, I have a higher social status. I don't know.
Yes, it is a marker. It's a marker of social status.
Yeah.
That's what social network does. I mean, it pretty much categorizes things like this people is better, this is not doing so well, and we are pretty much comparing on that. I mean, I have 43 years old and I have done a bunch of research, and my 30 minutes on Instagram, which is the time I spend top, I don't go over 30 minutes a day on Instagram. I am comparing myself all the time. I mean, and I wouldn't imagine how it will be having 15 years old and getting into social network and being longer than 30 minutes, because 30 minutes for my students who are 20 something, 30 minutes is nothing. So that's one part of the relationship between happiness and social network. The other thing that it concerns me the most, and we don't have that much evidence, it is the attention span. I mean, with social network, you are only with the attention of 30 seconds. And you need to have longer span attention to learn something. And in the World Happiness Report and many other evidence, it is showing how test scores are going down. But are down and down. They are going down seriously. The PISA test scores, which is a test that measures the learning abilities of students around the world, are decreasing significantly in reading and math, in science, and every possible area that the test has been measuring is going down. I mean, what is going to happen in 20 years if we continue with that trend? What children are able to learn if we
That's why I was asking, how do you think that these dynamics are going to affect the way that people relate to each other in Latin America, that has these advantages that you were saying, but now with social media, maybe the next generations are not going to be able to have this high quality of social relationships.
And it is very complex because one thing is social media, okay? One thing is TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. But other thing, it is the digital consumption, because you also have now IA, and you have pornography, and you have video games. I mean, when you are trying to disentangle like what is going on when you are in your mobile device or your electronic device, you don't know what is going on. I mean, you are connected all the time. Not all of that is social network. And it's very early to say, but what will be the consequences of IA, for instance? Is social networks are pretty much in the business of the attention, getting your attention, but IA is in the business of attachment. We will have larger impacts in our happiness or emotional well-being. So
maybe the prohibition is one of the solutions. Until Jonathan Haidt was saying, no, until they are 14, don't give a phone, and until they are 16, not social media.
No social media. And I mean, in this, when you get into the realm of regulations, you will have a group of people who say, we need causal evidence. And we both know, and if you are a scholar, you know that finding a causality is very difficult. I mean, like, to provide like evidence like smoking kills or causes cancer, it has years and a lot of effort to be able to find that link. So you have people who say, I need stronger evidence. There is other people who say, okay, no, the evidence that we have might be an indicative, and we can take measures from there. And that's pretty much where regulation gets into. And I don't think regulations will solve problems, not because in Colombia or any other country, it will be a regulation that not using cell phones in the school hours or getting into social network when you are 16. I mean, regulation per se won't solve any of those complex problems, but it is a signal of what societies are pursuing, of what societies consider it is important. If you ask me, in my opinion, knowing that the evidence it's not causal, that we don't have that strong links, that Latin America has a completely different panorama on that, because we haven't seen the decline of happiness within the young people that we might see in the United States or developed countries, for instance. But I will favor regulation.
Okay.
I will do it. I mean, with regulation, any measure that the government will take has pros and cons. But adding some, I will say I will go with regulations because it is a signal or what societies are promoting.
Totally agree. Now I would like to move to your book.
Okay.
Felicidad. Congratulations again,
Thank
Lina.
you.
And I don't know if maybe you can give us, for the listeners of the podcast, some takeaways and maybe just one last advice that you could give to the audience that maybe, well, it's a summary a bit of what you try to say in the book.
I wrote this book in 2020. It was pretty much no classes for my students. I started teaching. I teach at the moment when the pandemic started. I was teaching public policy and public policy evaluations. Those were my classes. One day I get into the class in the Zoom classroom because we have to move to Zoom. And I asked them, how are you feeling today? And they were stressed, anxious. They were holding a bunch of ambiguity between themselves. And I just started talking about the research on subjective well-being and mental health, and I consider completely irrelevant to teach them about public policy. Pretty much, that semester was all about the research I was doing, because a class about happiness and life satisfaction or well-being was completely out of place before the pandemic. I mean, it was like that was way too soft. Later, the class, which is called Happiness and Well-being, the class now is established and is mandatory for all students in my university.
That's great.
And we are creating a network in Colombia to start to introducing these classes in the curriculum for higher education.
Totally.
So when I get into the point, when you are teaching, you get into the point like what I'm going to ask my students to read. I didn't find anything that has the mix between evidence and being accessible, because I wasn't going to ask my students to read a paper. Now, if you are taking a class on happiness, you don't want to read a paper. So what I did was trying to pretty much tell them stories of the science behind the happiness, with the rigorosity that I want them to get access, but with a language that was accessible for them.
Very good.
I wrote one chapter, the first chapter, and I just uploaded to the system, and I asked them to read, and the exam, it will be based on those notes. And I very much liked the exercise, so I continue, and wrote a whole book. And that had been 5 years since the moment I started writing the book, 2 years since the publication of the book. And it is amazing that a book has its own life, and people has its own interpretations. And it's awesome to live that experience, to live your book, to have a life beyond yourself. And one of the things that after teaching the class 5 years, and after having the feedback from the people who have been having me the attention to read my book, which I appreciate very much, I will say that is the major takeaway on this is how we approach life in general. And for instance, for me, if people ask me, give me one tip, because that's pretty much that's a question that comes quite often, and I say just be grateful. I mean, be grateful is cheap, for not saying is free. Okay, it wouldn't say it is free because you need to have a mentality, a mindset for that. But when you are grateful, pretty much you change the threshold in which you are comparing yourself. And when we are in social network, going back to the example we mentioned before, when you are in social network, you are comparing yourself above the threshold. When you are grateful, you compare yourself below that threshold. I mean, you are not grateful for the fortune of the house I'm going to have in 10 years. You are grateful for whatever you have now, for the life for the life you have, for the health, for the family, for the food, for the possibility to be here, and that grounds you in the moment. So I will say that being grateful, it will be the easiest way to improve to increase your happiness and to improve in general your life.
That's great. It's a great way to finish this podcast. Is there anything else that would you would like to add? Any last reflection? Any last?
My last reflection on this will be, it is amazing to be a scholar on happiness and well-being at this moment of life. I have been doing research for about 13, 14 years in this area. And before the pandemic, I felt like it was completely unnecessary research. I mean, no one has paid attention to that. And it was like cosmetic research. I am in a school of business and economics, and I never felt taken seriously on my research until the pandemic. When the pandemic hit, and our perceptions of how is life, how we're living, and especially our mental health, because when you study happiness, you have to study mental health. I mean, those are things that comes together and explain a lot of things. So for me, it is like, this is a great moment to be doing research on life satisfaction. And I feel that now, through the research, through the things we do, we can contribute so much into society, into a different narrative, or what makes a life worth living. So I will close for that. I know that this podcast is for ISQOLS, for the International Society of Quality of Life Studies. For those who are scholars and who are in this fantastic group, it is a fantastic moment to be in this area and doing research about happiness. So my invitation to continue in this path.
Lina Martínez, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Muchas
much.
gracias. And for those who are considering, remember to take this book and read it. Thank you, Lina.
Thank you.